Hi kids. I'm a little weird tonight, but I was trying to figure out what I was going to talk about. I would like to do another full-on review at some point, but I don't have the time to do it right now, because I like to be all organized and detailed and stuff with those. So this one's more of a quick look at something I played a lot of back in the day, and riffs. Ooh, riffs. Now, riffs is well, how to put this? Riffs is a multi-genre game, I guess? A meta-genre game? It's weird. This occupies a strange little space off to its own. It's done by Palladium Games, who before this, they did the Robotech role-playing game, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness game, which I loved. I loved that game. I would play another game of that today, honestly. That was so much fun. And some other things. They had their own fantasy thing. They published the Palladium Fantasy Role-Playing or whatever. I forget the proper name of it was, but their D&D knockoff. They published Recon, which was a game where you play in Vietnam. So that's charming. I want more of that in my life. Let's go hang out in a horrible, horrible place and fight a war that we don't quite understand and have terrible things done to us. And we do terrible things to other people. That sounds fun. Right. Anyways, Ninjas and Super Spies, which was sort of, well, it's like Top Secret, I guess, but with more martial arts. And it was a kind of a goofy game. They published Heroes Unlimited, which was sort of their superhero game, which had its ups and downs. A few other things. Beyond the Supernatural, which is actually not a terrible game, all things considered. Not a terrible game. And then they decided that they were going to create a game that sort of combined all of these things to a certain extent, or at least touched on them. And so they came up with Rifts, where it's a post-apocalyptic future where there are rips in time and space that have opened up to different dimensions and different worlds and bled terrible things into the world. Atlantis returned, and it's ruled by Splagorth, which sound like something that would be out of a Lovecraft novel. And the last human outposts are far and few between, and quite a few of them are despotic and terrible, and they somehow combined a bunch of weird things into the game, so you could play, a scientific scholar or a technician or something, and be walking around in the same team as a guy who pilots a giant mechanized armor that has a big frigging gun that can blow holes in mountains. So, to say that it was high adventure would be an understatement. I liked playing in Rifts. If I'm being discerning and being honest, I have to say Rifts is not a good... Well, it is a good game in that I had fun playing it. It is not a well-designed game. The design philosophy on it is poor. And whereas the world design is actually interesting, their game design is not good. I can't actually endorse it. I think you can still have fun playing it, but it's usually despite the rules. When you have to spend hours making your characters, and there are weapon systems that people carry on them everywhere they go that can actually just kill your character. Period. You're hit by this, you're dead. Were you not wearing mega damage armor? You're dead. Why? Because it would blow a hole through the 20th century tank. And you carry it as a sidearm. Because stupid is apparently the rule of the day in the future. It's got those problems. The combat system is clunky and not very well done, and the skill system, while certainly has depth, has a lot of overlap, and you're constantly modifying one thing with another thing, and you're never quite clear on which modifiers apply, and it gets old. And there's no consistent power level. I mean, you can actually have a game where you're playing dragons and demigods running around with ordinary guys who, are smart. That's their power. Which would be great in a superhero game, or actually in a game that had its balance built so that it could handle that. But this wasn't designed that way. Like, you could do that kind of game in Fate. Fate would be able to handle that. Because it's all narrative. And, okay, well, this character gets to be awesome here, and this character gets to be awesome there, and, their power levels may be relatively weird and off-kilter, but you can still make them interesting and work together. The Marvel heroic role-playing, another good example of, here's how you handle that well. Rifts doesn't do that. Rifts follows actually kind of a D&D paradigm with its own odd bent on it. And part of the problem is that they brought in rules that were designed to handle the difference between being people and people in mechanized armor from, say, Robotech. And they put it in as a core system and changed how the world was built so that everybody was carrying it around. And there was problems with it. The rules are not good. That said, I still have a lot of nostalgia for it. I still have a lot of love for the setting, the sort of sweat-stained, testosterone-soaked wonder that it is. It's post-apocalyptic and magical and scientists, and it's kind of Thundar the Barbarian. It's kind of just amazing. Actually, there's so much cool world there to play with. Almost enough to make me want to put up with the rules again. I tried to run a game a few years ago with some friends. That didn't go well. I'm going to be honest, it did not go well. They did not like the rules at all, and they made it perfectly clear that they kind of hated the rules. And you know what? That's fine. Some people want different things from different games. It happens. We move on. There are things that Rifts did really well, though. It did world building in a very strange gonzo way that seemed to work. This is not to say that it would work for everyone, and I'm not saying that gonzo world building is what everything should be, but it's certainly been a place that I've been in my head, where big sweeping strangeness in the world, and sort of sure, you want 8 men hanging out with wizards, hanging out with cyborgs, and roid-raged mutants, sure. You can have all of that. And the setting is designed to sort of give you a justification for having all of that. And I think that is one of the strengths of the setting and the strength of the game. Another thing that they did really well is they got some great artists to work on their books. I mean, this is a good cover. This is a really good cover. The books had just amazing artwork. Their interior art wasn't always as awesome, but it was usually pretty good. This is a good picture. This is pretty nice. When it was on, and it's hard to deny that their artwork was amazing. Here's some nice pieces. Okay. Let's see those. There's this iconic image, which I will figure out how to get on camera here. This guy's awesome. He's a ley line walker. I love the descriptor on that was typical ley line walker. And looking awesome was typical in this setting, and that's kind of the point. And I think there are lessons you can take from riffs, and for your own purposes of doing the gonzo game, the wacky, the crazy, the more, bigger, badder. Like I said, it's not perfect. The game has its flaws. Oh my, does it have its flaws? But it definitely left an impact on me. I still enjoy picking up the books from time to time and looking through them, especially the source material worlds, Phase World. One of my favorite comic writers actually worked on a book for them. A comic writer and artist, a guy named Tim Tremaine, did a lot of work on the Wormwood supplement, and it's gorgeous. And it's this world where the planet's sort of alive, and there are Templars that ride motorcycles, and it's just a bunch of amazing sort of visual concepts that work. And it's a dimension you can just show up to, and you could come out of it, take characters out of that dimension, and have them show up in Chicago, which was not a nice place in Rifts. And then you could go to Phase World, and which was their deep space sort of thing, where you go off to some section of space and you can run into cosmonites, and it's meant to be crazy, super meta, intense, almost Mountain Dew commercial level extreme, and it managed to work. It had the right mixture to make it work. I think part of the thing that made it work was actually tying it to their other games. There's a figure from the horror game, there's Beyond the Supernatural, which actually shows up in Rifts. They tied their Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle post-apocalyptic system after the bomb. They tied that to Rifts. They tried to make it so that you could integrate rules from all of their games, and that definitely helped sort of keep that gonzo thing going, but still ground it in such a way that you could enjoy it. I've always been a fan of Rifts for its world building, and I think people could learn a lot from Rifts by taking a look at it. It's easy to dismiss because there's some old game design ideas in it, not necessarily great ones, and it doesn't look like they really want to change it. They're happy with it, which is fine. They're allowed to be happy with it, I guess. But yeah, I think that it's definitely something worth looking at and discussing. What's your experience with Rifts? Or any sort of game that you feel like it's not a great game, but you can still take stuff from it, still take good things from it, and let me know what you think. Anyways, this one's run about almost 16 minutes now, so I'm going to wrap it up. And subscribe, like, talk to you later. Have a good time.